Hey guys, Geoffrey here. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about what we call the paradox of logic and another concept called emotional debt. And these are the two paradoxes that I see a lot of people falling into when they're trying to save their relationship. And be sure to stick around to the very end of this video because these two paradoxes that we're going to talk about are the paradoxes or the traps that you will fall into if you follow the popular advice about relationships today. And it's going to be inevitable, and you will see why this is a bit later when we progress in the video. And the worst part here is that if you fall into one of these paradoxes, then you're going to be stuck in this cycle where you think whatever you're doing is the right thing to do. But you're always going to be stuck in a cycle of bad outcomes, and you're going to be pushing her further and further away, and you won't even know it. That's the worst part. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Geoffrey and I help men in long-term relationships or in marriages with the right skills, with the right knowledge, with the right mindsets to be able to design a thriving relationship for yourself. So if you want more content on this topic, then subscribe to this channel and click the bell button as well to be notified when I post new videos every single week. Now, before we begin this video, I also want to let you know that the masterclass for the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up is still open. So if you want to join that masterclass, again, be sure to stick around till the very end of this video for the announcement on how you can get in on that. So I want to start this discussion by talking about what a paradox is. So a paradox basically is an idea or a concept that seems like a good idea from the surface. But when you start to dig deeper into it, you start to see how it's self-contradictory and actually starts to yield the opposite result when you look deeper into it. Now, this might sound a bit confusing right now what a paradox is and what a paradox looks like, so let's go deeper into this topic. There's two very good examples of how the paradox of logic occurs. The first example of this paradox happens when we see people trying to deal with their partner having an affair or whenever there's infidelity in the relationship. So what most people do is that when they find that their partner is having an affair, the first thing they try to do is they either passively walk away, they punish and they start to scold their partner and basically tell them, hey, having an affair is wrong, I can't believe you did this. Basically, they're trying to punish their partner and tell them how bad the affair really is. Or the third thing they do is they put their foot down and they create many boundaries around the relationship to basically try to control their partner and try to end the affair using their might. And when people do these three things, what they often think is that they're trying to or doing a very good job of reasserting or establishing their power in the relationship and establishing control. They also think that they're actually disabling the behavior and making it harder for the affair to happen. And finally, they also think that they're taking the leadership role, basically standing up for themselves and standing up for their right to tell them that the affair is not appropriate and to end the affair. But here's the reality that a lot of people don't realize, and I discussed this in a previous video, and this can sound very controversial to a lot of you. So if it sounds controversial, if you're getting offended, please check out that other video to see my full argument on why this is not as controversial as you think it is. Because number one, no matter how much you punish your partner, no matter how difficult you make it for your partner to keep having the affair, at the end of the day, emotionally, deep down, she's still going to emotionally feel the same. She still wants out of the relationship and she still wants to consider other relationships and look at other relationships. So while logically you're trying to squash it, emotionally you can't get rid of that desire. And in fact, the only thing that changes now if you try the three things that we talked about is now you will destroy safety. And when you destroy safety, the emotions, the feelings still exist internally. The only thing that changes is that now she won't tell you about it. And so this is where you can start to see the paradox, because while you think that asserting your dominance, asserting your power is making you more powerful, all you're doing is just destroying safety. And when she doesn't tell you about it, now you actually lose power. You actually lose even more control, which makes it even more difficult for you to disable the behavior if you can't control it, if you don't even know about it. And finally, it prevents you from being that leader, from really standing up for yourself because you don't know what you don't know. So again, this is the paradox of logic, in that if you try to use logic to assert yourself, then you might feel powerful, this false sense of power, but actually in reality, you are just becoming less powerful and losing your power there. Let's take another example of this. So the first example was about affairs. So the second example is about controllingness. So usually when people are struggling in the relationship or their partners have really checked out, they've really checked out because they feel smothered, they feel controlled. And that suffocation leads them to feel a bit hopeless about the relationship, which is why they want out. When a lot of men especially find that their partners is leaving because their partners feel like they have been really suffocating and controlling, the first thing they do is they try to logically convince their partner of why they're not controlling. How perhaps they've misinterpreted all the actions that they've done in the past, and try to come up with all these logical arguments to convince their partner that they're not controlling. And usually what happens is their partner is going to scoff, they're going to stonewall, they're going to gaslight, and basically tell him, you know what, you don't get it. And if their partner doesn't believe their logical arguments for why they're not controlling, they start to double down in that process and they try even harder to convince them now. But actually, if you do any of the three things that we mentioned above, then what you'll realize here is that you are facing a paradox. And the paradox goes something like this, where you're literally trying to control your partner into believing that you're not controlling. So yes, you're saying that you're not controlling, but you're doing so in a very controlling way. So paradoxically, again, the more you try to logically convince your partner that you're not controlling, the more you will just show that you're controlling, and the more you'll push her away. And the harder you try, the worse this gets. Now, there are many other manifestations of what the paradox of logic can look like in a relationship, but I just gave you these two examples to give you a better idea of what we're talking about here. Now let's go even deeper. And I want to go deeper here because I want you to see for yourself and understand the principles behind how this paradox forms beyond just the two examples that I just gave you here. So to understand how this paradox forms, we have to understand the two parts of communication. So just to make it very simple, in order for communication to happen, there needs to be first the stage of expression and understanding. And the second part is the stage of the solution stage, finding the win-win. So you have two parts here. Now, how most people communicate here is that they see the expression and understanding part one, as a means to an end, as the less important part, as a tool to simply get to the solutions. In fact, if you ask most people, they actually see this part as an inconvenience, as a hassle. And usually people find that the less time they spend in the expression and understanding stage, and the faster they can get to the solution stage, the better the communication session was. That is, they have to spend a long time expressing and understanding, like a couple of days understanding each other. That shows a failure or a breakdown in communication. And most people also think that if, let's say, a conversation happens and you only get to the understanding and the expression part, but you never ever find that solution, that conversation ends up becoming a failure. For example, when people are dealing with affairs, for example, they forget about letting their partner really express and really understand why their partner wants or resorts to the affair, which is that expression and understanding stage, and they straight away go into the solution stage, which is trying to control and trying to use logical means to end the affair right here, right now. And you can also see this manner of thinking in the way we deal with controllingness, as we discussed earlier. So most people just forget and try to skip through this part of expression and understanding, which is you simply letting your partner express their true reasons of why they think you are controlling. Instead, we go straight into the solution stage by telling our partner how we're not controlling, why we're not controlling, and so on. But what people don't realize here is that every single time we skip this expression or understanding stage, or we rush this process, we are creating what we call emotional debt. So just to take a step back again to really clarify what debt actually means. It's basically borrowing from the long term in order to fund something in the short term. So basically, you're trying to make it easier for yourself in the short term by taking loans or borrowing from the long term and making the long term a bit harder. That's what debt actually means and loans actually means. And when you rush this process, you're creating what we call emotional debt. Because when you rush to the solution and you don't make your partner feel understood, feel acknowledged, you're basically leading her to feel more suppressed and more repressed in the conversation, in the relationship. And whenever you are preventing her from really expressing her side of the story, this will naturally lead to the destruction of safety. Basically, this is the point when she gets a bad taste every single time she shares something with you, her deepest truth, her deepest secrets, her tough secrets, and so on. Because you keep showing her here that every time she expresses something to you, you're just going to be controlling, you're going to be imposing, not very understanding, too dominant, you're going to tell her how she's wrong, and etc., etc. And so in the short term, when you rush the conversation to the solution stage, yes, you might get to the solution at that particular conversation. But as safety is destroyed, it will make future conversations harder for you because the less and less and less she's going to share with you. And if she doesn't share the truth with you, then it'll make it harder for you to diagnose anything in the relationship, which leads to the lack of power and leadership And, you can't have power. You can't have the power to solve something. You can't have the power of leadership if the people who you're leading doesn't feel safe sharing stuff with you. And without this diagnosis, it will make it very, very difficult for you to ever resolve conflicts and get the resolutions, find the win-wins. So the paradox I want you to see here that naturally occurs whenever you try to rush the acknowledgement understanding part and straight into the solutions is that while you think this will make it easier for you to solve problems in the short term, it will actually make it harder for you to solve problems in the long term. So now that we understand how this paradox forms, and we can start to understand how to remove this emotional debt and how to gain true power in a relationship a bit better. So first, let's understand the nature of what it means to gain emotional safety and to remove the emotional debt from our relationship. Essentially, whenever we're trying to remove emotional debt, we're trying to persuade our partner to feel safer with you, to trust you a bit better, to trust you a bit deeper. Now, if the essence of what we're trying to do here is simply persuasion, then let's talk about the secrets or the keys to persuading someone in life. In any part of life, in the relationship or in the work setting or whatever it is. Most people think that the secret to persuasion is about what you say. When we think about persuasion or someone really good at persuasion, we think of a salesman. Almost like a Wolf of Wall Street type character where they just say a bunch of things and somehow they say this magical set of words that just changes your mind completely and makes you trust them, makes you buy from them and give them all your money. We imagine, for example, in a relationship setting, persuading your partner to be persuading them and telling them about how much we've changed, and telling them about how we're not controlling, telling them about how good the future will be, and so on. But actually what you say is a very, very small part of persuasion. Real persuasion is 95% or even more about making the person you're trying to persuade feel more understood and more acknowledged than anybody else in this world can, and better than they can understand themselves. So let's imagine here that you're going to a doctor. You will gain trust and safety with that doctor if that doctor can diagnose you in a very potent way and can pinpoint issues in you that you never thought was there in the first place, but when you realize it, when he tells you that, you go, you're right, I do feel that. So if the doctor can really diagnose you, can really make you feel like you are understood, you are acknowledged, that he knows exactly what is going on with your body, with your sickness right now, then you are going to trust a doctor. And a doctor doesn't need to even tell you the treatment plan. The fact that you understand the doctor understands makes all the difference. You are 95% persuaded when just that happens. The same way, for example, if you go to a mechanic and you don't know anything about cars, but this mechanic can tell you every single thing that is wrong with your car. Things that you've been noticing in the back of your head, but never really thought it was a big deal. But then when he starts to diagnose your car, you go, you're right, that is a problem. If he can really understand your problems better than you can, better than any mechanic can, that is how you gain trust and safety for that mechanic. So if you want to gain trust and safety and you want to persuade your partner to feel more trust and safety for you, the process is actually very simple. So number one, you need to start understanding how to ask questions and how to ask the right questions. Basically, you need to understand how to dig deeper in a conversation. And you need to be able to understand how to paraphrase and how to develop what we call an antithetical mind in our program. For you to be able to be more open-minded, truly open-minded, and for you to be able to understand people's perspectives, people's expressions, not only mentally, but emotionally and physically as well, but be able to convey your understanding to your partner in a very deep and emotional way as well, to make sure that your partner understands that you understand what she's going through. To go back to the previous two examples of the affair, so instead of simply putting your foot down and being all dominant and trying to get her to stop the affair right here and there, what you can do is simply acknowledge and understand her point of view, where she's coming from. So for example, most of the time, we enroll 400 clients plus in the last 13 months, 14 months, and a lot of them, these men are facing a partner who's having an affair. And their journey always starts with them understanding how to acknowledge and understand their partner on a very deep level. And not only do they internally understand, they're also able to convey this understanding to their partner. So for example, once they start to dig deeper, they realize that the affair wasn't caused by some bad character problem. We always say, for example, once a cheater, always a cheater. But that the affair was really caused by years and years and years of built-up pain, of built-up repression, built-up baggage in the relationship to the point where she feels so hopeless that she can't imagine being in this relationship with this one person forever. Just the thought of spending your one life, one and only life, forever with this one person that doesn't make you happy makes them feel so miserable, makes them feel so hopeless. And that's the reason for that affair. And I think most of us can relate to that feeling. Imagine being stuck and being forced to be with someone that you don't really like, that you don't really love for the rest of your life. You're gonna want out every single day. And the only way you can not want out is if you try to suppress that feeling of wanting out, which is also a bad feeling in itself. So I'm sure we can all relate to this reason. So the first thing you need to do is be able to paraphrase and summarize that for her. For example, you can say, you know what? Thanks for telling me or revealing to me, or I'm grateful for finding out that there is an affair going on, because this tells me that there's a lot going on internally in you right now. And based on what you expressed to me, I think I understand why you feel the need to look for other relationships, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same. If I was in a relationship where we have so many conflicts and I didn't even have enough safety or the ability to even talk about those conflicts, to express those conflicts with you, and I feel so miserable, I feel so repressed, I feel like I just want to bust out of this relationship, I would feel as repressed and suppressed as you do, and I would feel as hopeless as you do, and I would start looking at other women, other people, and wonder, what would it be like with these people? Is that kind of how you feel right now? So that's the kind of level of acknowledgement that I want you to be able to do. But of course, to get there, you need to be able to understand how to dig deeper, to understand the true spirit, the true core behind what she's expressing and what she's feeling. And when you do this, what you're doing is you're making your partner feel more safety and trust in you, that yes, there are problems, but at the very least, I can talk about those problems and conflicts with my partner. And when you do this, ironically, you gain more power, because not only is she giving you a lot of clues to become better, whenever you get these clues on how you can become better and what was wrong in the relationship, then you can actually start to resolve those conflicts and become that better person and create a better culture in the relationship. And so now you start to generate this really positive loop where the more you lean in, the more you acknowledge, the safer she feels. The safer she feels, the more you understand. The more you understand, the more you can find win-wins. The more you can find win-wins, the more she gains safety with you. The more she gains safety with you, the more she shares, and so on. This creates a very, very positive feedback loop. And when you create enough of this safety, what you'll often realize is that, one, not only does your partner realize that she can feel very emotionally liberated, more liberated than being with any other guy on the planet here, but also, she also starts to realize here that having conflicts doesn't actually matter. If you have safety, conflicts don't matter. If you have the ability to express and to talk about those conflicts, then the conflict itself doesn't matter. Both of you will start to realize as you start to play out the cycle here that the only thing that matters is how you create safety and how you remove that emotional debt. If you can remove the emotional debt, then conflicts no longer plague the relationship, and your partner will stop looking at other relationships because she feels all the emotional liberation, all the win-wins, all the things that she needs from a relationship, the 5 pillars that we talk about in our masterclass, all from this one relationship. And she doesn't need to look elsewhere for any of this. So again, by leaning into the affair and by removing emotional debt, making your partner feel understood and acknowledged about the affair, ironically, it might seem like you're losing power in the beginning. You're just letting her walk all over you, but actually you're regaining a lot of power. You're regaining a lot of control. You are making it easier for you to disable the behavior, and you make yourself a leader that can basically stand up for what you believe in, and you can start to lead because you have this communication going. So to summarize, the main takeaway that I want you to see here is that if you look at the 2 parts of expression or communication again, the first stage is the expression and understanding part. The second stage is the solutions part. As long as you are prioritizing the expression and understanding part and really internally trying to understand your partner on that deeper level, up to the point where you can say, if I were you, I would have done, thought, felt exactly the same. And it's crucial that you get here. If you can get there, and you can also do a very good job of using the frameworks to express to your partner just how much you understand, not only on a mental level, but also on a physical level, on an emotional level. If you can really describe to her that feeling, to show her that you understand what she feels on a deep level, then you're always going to be creating emotional safety. And it might seem when you're doing this like you're taking the weaker or the beta position, but actually you're becoming, as we showed, a more powerful version, a more in control version, and putting yourself in a position of leadership even more. In our Relationships Rebel program, this is something that all our clients have really deeply mastered. It's mastering the skills of developing a mindset, developing a way of thinking that allows you to really be open-minded, truly be open-minded, so that we can use that open-mindedness to understand our partner on a deeper level. That whatever it is that is happening, we can at least internally understand why our partner is doing something, and we can internally say, if I were you, I would have done, thought, felt exactly the same. Not only that, once we understand something, our clients have also mastered the skill of paraphrasing, of showing and expressing that to our partner that we truly understand and deeply understand. And once they can do this, what they realize is that they're 95% of the way to persuading their partner to feel safe with them again, to trust them again on that much deeper level. So if you want more content about this, if you want to go deeper into your exploration of this topic, then I want you to join me in my free masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up. In that masterclass, I'll show you the exact steps, the exact layers of changes that you need to access in order for you to rebuild your relationship from the ground up for sure, no matter how hopeless you think your situation is. So if you want to join that masterclass, you can click the link above my head or also down in the comments below or in the description box below this video as well. And if you want to get a free guide teaching you a little bit about what these frameworks look like, just one of our frameworks of many, then you can also download my free guide above my head, also down in the comments below or in the description box below this video as well. And finally, if you want to join a community where you can post your questions, ask your questions, and get support from myself or a member of my team, then you can also join me in my free Facebook group down below this video. In the meantime, do leave a comment below with what you thought was most insightful, most eye-opening about this video. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you found this video helpful and very eye-opening, then click like on this video. It really helps the channel out and spread this word to more and more people. And also feel free to subscribe to this channel for more content like this one. In the meantime, I will leave you with these 2 other videos here with more content, with more mindsets, knowledge, skills that you can use to design a thriving relationship for yourself. For now, I'll see you in the next video.